I'm excited to be here with you guys. I am going to actually do a quick intro of the topic, and then I'm going to let the panel kind of talk. And I'm using my iPhone because I actually have my notes on there. First, thanks so much for having us. I think that the topic of humans versus robots, not only do I think it's timely, but I think it's relevant and really interesting conceptually, and we're going to get into that. But just to give you a sense, just last year, robot sales increased by about 38%. And so right now there's about 166,000 units, by far the highest that we've ever seen in history. And what's interesting is that most projections suggest that baseline consumer robots that consumers will be able to use in the household, will probably be in the next 10 years in the cost range of $20,000. To give you an idea, the first time the word robot was actually coined or used was in 1931, and then Isaac Asimov kind of made it more mainstream for us, and that's kind of where we've been going from. I think there's a lot of different conceptions of what robots are, and I think we're going to explore a number of those today. The real goal of where we're going to go is to talk about, okay, what is the definition of robots? How do we look at the space of robots? Where are robots affecting job creation? Where are they creating unique opportunities for humanity in general? And ultimately, are we actually asking the right question? Is it robot versus human? Or are we embarking on a place where there might not actually be a difference between those two? So that's what we're going to discuss. But I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. So why don't we just go down the line and you give an introduction and then pass it on.
Sure.
Tell a little bit about yourself and maybe your favorite robot.
Of course I will. Thanks for having me. I'm actually excited. I wasn't sure until a few minutes ago that this discussion is going to be on robots and not on computers. So I think it's the first time I'm going to talk about robots. So that's exciting to me. My favorite robot by far is Optimus Prime.
Oh.
Since it was an animation all the way to whatever it is today when we watch it on Hollywood. My name is Singolda. I'm the founder and CEO of Taboola. We're a content distribution and personalization company. We power recommendation companies like Forbes, Time.com, Weather.com as of yesterday, and many more.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
I prefer not to be recognized. So with what I've seen, that maybe there is a secret organization behind Monaco Media Forum. I don't want to take risks, so let's call me Mr. P.
Mr. P? I thought he was wearing sunglasses because it was a long night, but...
Yeah, okay, let's get rid of that. So I'm Patrice Slupowski from Orange, in charge of digital innovation. And, I think my favorite robot is probably, in French we call him Goldorak. It's Glendriser in English. Is it a robot or a cyborg? We'll discuss that.
Okay, let's get into it.
My name is Steve Rosenbaum. I'm the CEO of Magnify.net, which is a web video curation company. And I'm the author of Curation Nation. And I should say I love robots and have since I was a kid. My favorite robot growing up was Robbie the Robot from Lost in Space. But I really want robots to be known as robots. And what creeps me out and what concerns me today is things that appear to be human but actually are robots. And so I think, more and more I feel like I have to advocate for humans because I think they're in danger.
Okay. So before I go into the questions, I'll do a quick introduction of myself. I'm Bonin Bough. I run media globally for Mondelēz, which is the company that spun off Kraft Food Group a couple of months ago. And my favorite robot is Johnny 5 from Short Circuit. Some of you might have seen the movie, but he's quite a funny robot. So let's start off with the first question. So we talked a little bit about this, or I alluded to this, that robots have kind of been a fixture in pop culture for at least the last 50 to maybe almost 100 years. And they were kind of thought as complex and functional. But how do you think our perceptions of robots have evolved over the last couple of decades? You want to start, or anybody want to jump in?
I can jump in. I think that robots are just normally meant to do some kind of tasks that we consider are either dangerous or repetitive, or things that we don't want to spend time on. And at the beginning, I think that we've melted, and many people have melted, especially in Western Europe, the idea of using robots to relieve pain, and the idea of bringing a modern world made of robots. And the consequence of that is that we can probably blame robots for unemployment, for a part of the unemployment which is existing. And to tell you a short story, I was impressed once I was visiting a factory a few years ago in Shenzhen in China, thinking that there was a big warehouse, and for the first time I was seeing Chinese people using robots. And I was telling them, I had the habit of seeing you. When you have a small problem, you're putting someone. When you have a bigger problem, you're putting 10 guys. When you have a huge problem, you're putting 100 or 1,000 guys. And here you're using robots. What are you doing? And they were telling me, yeah, but people are, human beings are making so many mistakes. We want to get the best quality for a customer, so now we're using robots. And I've told them, you're lost. You're totally lost. You're just entering the time of decadence because you're just violating the fourth law of robotics that Isaac Asimov has never written, which is that it's not about only doing harm or respecting the human beings, but in no case robots should replace people in terms of getting a decent job.
Yeah, you want to touch on that?
I'm not sure I agree.
It's good. We are meant to disagree here.
Yeah, whatever you say, I'll say the opposite. No, I don't think our job, our purpose in the 70, 80 years that we live is to do things we can have something else do instead of us doing it. I think humans are unique in terms of being creative, think outside of the box, do something that was not meant to be repetitive 1,000 times. So I'm a big believer in machines in terms of doing things that I don't want to do. I'm okay with it. So I always think about, I think the fact that technology companies can have 50 engineers or 40 engineers and do things that maybe 20, 30 years ago used to take 10,000 employees is amazing. You know, we serve 1 billion recommendations a day. We have 40 engineers. We don't have 10,000 employees. That's great. It means that we can have, as Terry said, good multipliers in the company because it's a technology company, and surrounded by a good management team. So I think overall, what I hope will happen is that we'll constantly go up the food chain, right? So we'll spot things that we don't have to do, we can do in a more efficient way. We'll automate that, and we'll move to the next thing that's exciting.
So it's interesting because I think we're facing a moral dilemma. Is it a moral dilemma? Is it a question of?
I think it depends on who you're asking.
Yeah.
It's not only a question of moral; it's a question of pure economics, etc. If you're just following the natural trend of human beings, which is to be lazy and try to have things done but by someone else, if you're following the rules, at the end of the day, you have 1% of the people working and using robots. The rest are just fighting with each other.
But just back to your original question, how our perception of robots has changed. I actually think the answer is it hasn't. I think robots have changed dramatically and are now in our daily lives in ways that we don't even remotely think of as robots. And part of it is that the science fiction version of robots is that they're these humanoid characters that clean the apartment like the Jetsons. But in reality, there are robots in my life that I'm delighted are there. I mean, I'm delighted there are ATMs that have replaced bank tellers, that my bank is now at my deli at the corner bodega at 3 in the morning. So I love that robot, right? That totally works. The fact that I can drive straight on the highway and go straight through a toll without having to hand someone a dollar bill and there's an automatic toll system, that's a robot. I love that robot. But it's not, but it doesn't fit the media stereotype of what a robot is. And I'm comfortable with those robots. The ones that freak me out are the ones that don't identify themselves as robots. And I'll give you an example. The other day I started following someone on Twitter, and that person tweeted back, "Hey, really appreciate the follow." And somebody I admire, and I was like, "That's really nice." And then I went, "That's not a real person, is it? No. That's an Autobot." But the fact that I don't know whether that person is actually speaking to me or has programmed something to send essentially a fake Hallmark card to me made me uncomfortable, and it changed my relationship with that person.
But is that wrong, or is that just a part of shaping the new society that we live in? We talked about this a little bit. There's a company called Infomorph, and what they do is they allow you to go in and answer a series of questions, and it takes on your personality. So to give an example, they gave it the personality of King Kong. And then it allows you to actually geofence, and you can check in places. And so they checked in to London. And somehow, after using its personality, it realized that it was not supposed to be in London, that the best place for it to be was actually at the Empire State Building. So it would continue to check in at the Empire State Building. The number one person checked in on Foursquare at the Empire State Building, and it's this bot. Sometimes it would make it down to Florida, but it would always go back to the Empire State Building. And actually, the head engineer, what he did was he said, okay, I want to go on a vacation. I'm going to program my morph, is what they call it, and I'm going to send him on a fake vacation based on what he knows. And he goes on his vacation throughout Latin America, and then the guy actually went and took that exact same vacation that his morph did. His morph checked in, and he said, I love the vacation. It was so close to what I would actually do. So is that wrong, or is that just another part of society that we have to contend with?
The answer is that's wrong. So after you told me about Infomorph, I set one up called SteveBot, and I set it off in the world to go to places I was interested in. And after about a week, my wife came to me and said, you got to shut that thing off, because it's really creeping me out, because it's
inviting her to dinner.
Essentially, it was hitting on her. It was
it's a better version, you know. It's so nice to me all the time.
You got to shut off. I know it's not you, Steve. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it. I mean, I think that part of what we need to get to, if there's a new law of robotics, is robots need to identify themselves as robots. That would be my proposal, is that you have to say, this is a robot speaking to you, not a human.
I think that was in Isaac Asimov. I mean, so let's go back to the point of job creation, or the point of job
destruction.
Fair enough. So, but some people would argue the different is that because of the efficiency, we're actually creating larger companies that are actually able to employ more people. So, do you not feel that is ever the case, or?
At the end of the day, automated things everywhere is not something which is working. It's just like you're thinking that the stock exchange, the stock can grow and grow and grow and never stops, or that money can be created and there is no limit into that. There is some balance into that. So I'm just raising the question: if you're taking those people out, what will they do? Where they will create themselves? Seen from a very high-level engineering perspective, where you can, as we do in the digital industry, we recreate our job every time. We're just thinking, because we're able to do that, to recreate something and to reinvent a new portions of economy. It may sound awkward, but seen from a very manual thing, it doesn't work.
Is it a right brain, left brain battle? Is that the battle here? Because if the problem is efficiency, you can always make things more efficient. I'll give you an example. I was thinking about this topic last night. So I live in New York, and I ride the 1 on the west side to my work every day. And there are about 4 different conductors that drive the 1 depending on what shift they're on. And they all are terrible announcers in different ways. They have really thick accents. They mispronounce stops. They get angry at people. They yell about the doors being open. They're New York characters. You can, from an engineering perspective, that would be an easy thing to fix. You could have a little relay that says, just play a recording when the train stops at each stop, and it would be much more soothing in the morning to have an automated woman's voice saying, you're now at 42nd Street. Doors are closing. Well. But I would really be sad if that happened, because part of what makes New York is that it's Brooklyn-y and edgy and complicated, and that the subway conductors, didn't get a good night's sleep and yell at you on the subway. So I get that it would be an easy technology fix. I hope it doesn't happen.
And to get your point, I think that this is part of the idea that in many countries now you could have a full automated day. Well, you will, with the robots you were the machines you were naming, distributing some cash, etc., vending machine, etc. You can have a full day without any human link. And at the end of the day, the only links you will get is through the social networks, where you will tell your friends that you would like to go to the hairdresser to have your hair cut. And this means that it's exactly the point. You're in a world which is totally automated, you will find yourself out of the community. only with some virtual links, but no real things that are going to make you cry if you're not listening, if you're if you're in front of this automated speech and things which are cutting the human link.
But I guess the question becomes: is that the new humanity? Is that a reality? What do you think?
I think it's our insecurities that force us to avoid change. Okay, most of us will try almost at all costs to make things stay the way they are today. I think we're talking about robots. Maybe we're talking about innovation. Maybe we're talking about machine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly what is the topic, but I think the fact of the matter. No, I mean I understand
We
the topic.
still have
I mean
20 minutes
I think it
to
has.
figure out.
I think it has
Exactly.
different angles.
Yeah.
To me, it's really the topic is about change. Okay, it's about how do we accept the fact? Look, people today, people act funky to me, right? People, check into Foursquare. To me, this is odd, right? Why would you volunteer to tell people where you are? Why would you volunteer to have a piece of metal like an iPhone next to your head? People volunteer to do more and more things that 10 years ago we wouldn't have done. I think we change. So in terms of machine and robots, to me it's exciting because if we can. My uncle, right? So I come from Israel. It's a small country that was bombed yesterday. And my uncle works in the south of Israel, and he works in harvest sand. And then one time he called me and he said, "You can't believe it. They brought machines to do that, and they're probably going to fire me." And I told him, stick around, see what's going to happen. And what happens now is that they had to send them to learn how to operate the machines, right? It's still a low tech job somewhat, but now that's what he's doing. And now what's funny enough, now he has an idea. He came to me and he said, you're a geek. You think I could do more stuff with what I've learned? And I said, maybe you should. Maybe you should learn Java, and maybe you should be a programmer, and maybe you should do other stuff. And that only happened because it was forced to face a new reality. So sometimes that's the only way we change, because we have to, or because it's what other people are doing and we're following them. So to me, this is it's about your approach. I think if we can sort of treat innovation in a constructive way, then we can take the best of it. And if we're not, then we're going to hold it until we're forced to change.
If I may, I would suggest that we're spending a few minutes in the media industry, which is not a bad idea in Monaco Media Forum, which for me would be to say that if you're taking the problem of media consumption and just taking on one side all the recommendation engine, which are becoming more and more not only popular but efficient, and on the other side, you're taking the big buzz name curation. What's the next killer app? Is it the one which is going to be done thanks to some very good curation system, or the one which will be brought by the clever combination of one of the 8 methods to recommend something with its social item to item, etc.? And as a matter of fact, having been testing all of these elements for years and years, my current conclusion is that we'll probably come into something which is hybrid. And I would definitely bet on the hybridization phenomenon to be the middle term answer of that. So we're not opposing robots and human. We're just thinking that there is the best of the possible worlds is probably a combination.
I agree. So I disagree.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
And the reason I disagree is because I think that if you level the playing field like that, then robots win. I get into this conversation a lot with people who say, well, we're going to have an automated curation process. And my reaction to that, I don't know how many of you subscribe to Jason Hirschhorn's newsletter, Media Redefined. But what I love, so this is a collection, he reads all this web content. What I love about it is that the tone of it is uniquely him. And that occasionally he'll throw in links to things that are way outside the focus of the group. He got onto a kick about Joy Division a couple of months ago and did all these videos about a band that he loves. And there's no algorithm that's going to replace him. You could make an algorithm that gets 70% of him. And what scares me is if we don't actually push back on this and say there are things that are uniquely human and that should remain human, then what happens is we start getting used to 70%. Well, it's almost content. Well, it's almost well edited. It's almost a newspaper. It's almost a poem or a piece of theater or a painting. And what I didn't understand until fairly recently is that there are developers who really believe that the things that humans do in art, music, theater, creative arts are really, it's just a matter of time before they get the algorithm tuned and they won't need humans anymore.
Do you think that
Wrong.
that type of thinking is having or will have a potential profound effect on culture?
Yes. Well, so for example, Forbes, as a matter of course now, when companies come out with new earnings reports, there's an algorithm that writes these little blurbs that says, it has a bunch of keywords and it says, expectations were exceeded or expectations weren't met. And there is some amount of journalism that is somewhat formulaic. And so the idea that gets put out in the web as either sports reporting or business reporting and starts to get mixed in with original writing as, it's all the same. I think what starts to happen is we lose track of what has a voice and what is imitating a voice.
I guess the question, and I'm just going to paraphrase, if you guys haven't seen, Kevin Slavin does an amazing TED Talk on this topic of algorithms. And what he posits is that it's actually a third pillar of culture right now, and that things like Netflix, which is recommending what movies you should watch, or even further where the movie industry is plugging in scripts which are actually telling them what movies they should produce or not based on an algorithm, and ultimately that our entire lives will be shaped by algorithms, that it actually is just, we are entering into a new era of humanity, and that who cares if I know whether it's a computer writing it or if it's a real person? It is something that's shaping who I am. So why does it matter the destination?
Haven't you seen what's coming out of Hollywood lately?
I thought Battleship was good. Go ahead. Yeah.
Battleship, right? So here, I'll bounce it to you. So there's this Oreo video site, Daily Twist, in which people make videos about why they love Oreos. And I really enjoy the site. Now, you could build an algorithm that says, review each video before it comes in, make sure there aren't naked people in it, make sure that it doesn't use any of these 7 dirty words, make sure that it basically talks about cookies and doesn't mess with the brand. And if it meets these basic structures, go ahead and publish it. It doesn't need to be seen by a human. As a brand person, would you hand that over to a machine?
I'm the wrong guy to talk to. I would, but I would hand it over to a machine that also has the ability for the community to say, oops, the machine missed this one. Because I do believe that so look, I work in big organizations. The problem is that type of human curation reduces the ability to scale things quickly. And so when you're talking about a brand that has 28 million fans, the last thing I want to do is have fans waiting 2 days to have something posted. So I think that situation might be slightly...
Well, no, actually, it's the right answer. So I think the answer is exactly... I think that 28 million videos is more than, much as I love Oreos, is more Oreo videos than I could ever consume. And this comes down to what curation, the curation conversation, which is humans, the gating factor in all this is that I need to sleep, and I need to work, and I need to be with my family. So there's only so many hours I have in the day to watch Oreo videos. So I really actually probably want to watch a couple hundred that are the best, and the word best becomes tricky.
Yeah, who says?
Who says? Well, but I want them to be charming and funny, and I probably don't want them sitting in front of a bong while they're eating. Munchies is probably not a good keyword for that. But I want them to also be diverse. And to me, the thing that I am passionate about, and it was interesting to hear the BuzzFeed guys talking about passion as being the key to having a video go viral. I'm passionate about being surprised by content, by having one of those top 200 videos from the Oreos to be not just cute kids and fathers and mothers. Like, I want it to be edgy and a little bit off kilter, but not so much that it damages the brand. And I think it becomes very hard to get an algorithm to surprise me. Maybe that's it.
It's not a question of algorithm. I do agree on this one. It's really a question. It's just the same that you're entering a restaurant and you don't know exactly if you want to be surprised or not, to eat something you already know or not. So it's something here in your brain which has to be tracked, and there's no algorithm for that. There's no app for that. It's just about, you can mimic a little bit by getting the mood and thinking that the mood is the right entry point, but not enough.
But don't you ask the server what's delicious today?
Well, hold on. So I want to go back to robots.
All right, sorry.
But I do want to go back to robots in media. So, Adam.
We'll hijack you once again. We'll hijack the discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Fair enough. I'm sure you'll go back wherever you want. I'm just a moderator. No
problem.
So I think we're expanding this definition of robot from what might have been science fiction, look like a man, to almost any algorithm or thing. What are the robots of media right now?
Well, I think content recommendations are definitely fall under that bucket. Is it okay if I comment on the previous topic for a
Only
second?
if you come back to robots somehow.
I'll try.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I think I think the only reason we're having this conversation about who recommends and who suggests for you what to watch or read is only because we're going through this, because this is what's happening right now. If I told you I'm taking Google away from your Facebook, which is today, the three ways you reach content: you search for it if you know what you want. Facebook, if a friend of mine just posted something, and content recommendation if I have no idea what I want, and someone tells me you may want to watch that. So the only reason we're talking about this now is because today content recommendation is a new way to discover content. But honestly, I think it's irresponsible to have people do that. Okay, I think, if I could look, Amazon is doing a phenomenal job offering products, and which I enjoy and I spend money on. So I do think it's hybrid. I think it's, if there's a machine that can look into gazillion signals and offer me something that would expand my horizon, and now I'm a better person, this is good. It's not a bad thing. And the fact that I can search for it if I know how to type it, it's also good. So I think the fact that we can apply machines to, I want you to, just from my humble experience, right? We're looking at 200 million people a month. 200 million people. So I'm not saying we're doing a good job all the time. We definitely screw up from time to time. But at large, we're trying to do a good job to expand and offer you things you never knew you're gonna like. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So, you never knew you're gonna love Oreo, for instance. And by the way, he just gave you a social recommendation. You might actually check it out after this panel. So that's the second type of recommendation. In 2 years, in 2 Monacos from now, we'll talk about the fourth way of discovering content, the next machine. So in my opinion, it needs to be some sort of scalable machine with a touch of human, whether it's editorial tone, which I think matters, or curation, which I think matters, and so forth. So
Do you think it's negligent to not have algorithms helping to provide recommendations of content for people?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm objective, but I'm not. I think it is. I think if you want to grow your business, then I think you're making a mistake not applying everything you can to do so.
But I was hoping you were saying if you want to grow humanity, then it's wrong for us not to apply algorithms because they can sort through a volume of content that's so great that can actually bubble up new things and new experiences in a way that humanity itself, individuals, can't.
But it's Monaco. It's leadership of the digital revolution.
Okay.
It's a business discussion. So I think if you're a publisher, if you're an agency, or if you're a brand, proactively deciding as an executive to not apply a machine, it's just a matter of until I think you're going to lose your job, because at some point your competitors will beat you, and then you'll be upset that you decided not to do so.
So is the agency model that we follow right now as businesses, is that broken? Because at the end of the day, what I really rely on, so Daily Twist, 100 pieces of content that are created. I guess my point is most brands that look like us rarely apply any algorithmic approach to actually delivering content at some level.
Yes, you do. I mean, you're using ad networks and you're using analytics.
Fair enough. Okay.
And you're
to
using
buy media. Yeah, fair enough.
You're using,
But for the content creation or component of it.
I think it's, companies like Contently, right? And companies like even Demand Media, which is the low key, it's the lower end, but you see a lot of startups now coming up, and all they do is connecting brands with some sort of community of writers. That's awesome. And this is a trend right now, right? It's how can you even create content at scale that you can't otherwise create because you don't have the staff to do so.
So you have to end the sentence with robots.
Right.
So-
I said I'm not promising that I'm going to go back.
I want to
to
push
this
back on the signals thing, because I've been hearing that from engineers for the last 10 years. Is there anybody in this room that has gotten a good recommendation from Netflix and seen a movie? I mean, the other day, I had Rotten Tomatoes.
one.
Yeah, one. Okay,
Two.
3 people.
Who
That
said-
is not a success.
But still,
They're from Netflix.
Who said
and-
Netflix is doing a good job?
By the way, so here's the thing that I think we're missing, and it's changed in the last year. The volume of content that is being pumped onto the web, the digital overload that we all face in our lives between email and movies and text and photo and Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff coming at us, if they didn't have the algorithms right when it was professional media content in a much smaller, without real time, without this kind of velocity, the idea that we're now going to get it right as the velocity continues to increase, I think, it's getting further away. It's not getting closer.
See,
It's
I would disagree
infobesity.
with that
I
personally.
know.
The reason why I would disagree with it is because I just think we are getting smarter and better at it. You're talking about a time 5 years ago. I mean, the world has evolved and our intelligence and our ability has evolved. And actually, from what I see more and more is that every single piece of media that we're dealing with is becoming digitized. So ultimately, we're going to have to evolve our understanding and our approach towards algorithms if we're even going to, I mean, as a TV buyer, like eventually that is all exchange buying as far as I'm concerned. And the beauty is that I actually get real signals where right now I have a blunt instrument both on the buying side and both on the measurement side. Eventually I'm actually going to have precision and it's all going to be digital tactics. And when the scale
I agree with that, by
of
the way.
that goes to a scale of where the investment is at, all of a sudden people get really smart on algorithms.
So, but on the consumer side, as the person who's consuming media, what I want in my life isn't more. I want less. I want better quality collections that speak directly to me and my interests, that surprise me in ways that I want to be surprised. But I think that what you're going to see is.
But how do people get us there more? Because I feel like there's so many diversity of interests. How is people-powered curation ever going to get us there?
So I don't think it's people-powered. I think it's editor-powered. I think it's brand-powered. I think that there are brands I trust. So I trust Patagonia. And when Patagonia says, here are the videos that are going on in the world about global warming, about mountain climbing, about ice fishing, about extraordinary skiing, I watch them because that brand has built trust with me. So I think brands and trust works. I think that New York Magazine, which is a client of ours, does an amazing job both producing and curating video. But if they said, hey, Steve, instead of that 100 videos we curate every day, how about if we got you 10,000? It would go from being a wonderful experience to being 10,000. I don't have time for 10,000 videos.
How about if those 100 actually were tied to you specifically? Before we answer that, are there any questions in the audience? Because we have about 4 minutes left. I don't know how it's been working. Anybody want to just shout something out? Go ahead, shout it out.
Lady in the middle.
I can repeat it. Oh, we do need a microphone.
Trying to make sure this gets recorded
Right.
for later.
Okay. Yeah,
So
fine.
actually,
The
Steve, I just
robots
want to
are
jump
listening.
on what you're talking about there for a second. So you trust Patagonia to curate that content for you, but who's curating it at Patagonia? They're going through 10,000, 100,000 videos to give you those 5 or 3 or whatever it is that are interesting. Isn't that machine learning on the other side?
And they have an editor who has a sense of what is essentially their voice. So, by the way, I have no problem with algorithms and technology feeding into a human filter.
Why
I
do you
think that's
hate
great.
robots?
What?
Why do you hate robots?
I
so
love
much?
robots.
It's not about that. I
I'm
think
joking.
it's really, let's consider them tools. Algorithm, robots, machine, computers, etc. tools. And what is currently funny is to see on the long term now the discussion between biomimicry or biomimetism, where you have robots trying to replicate what's existing in nature for millions of years, and on the other side you have all the bionics with human beings trying to use robotic power. For instance, the exoskeleton, which is helping you walk, etc. My dear friend Jean-Louis Constanza is really trying to have that working, and this is fascinating because they're just trying to use what's on the other side. But at the end of the day, human win.
It's interesting because I just want to come back to bionics real quick in our little 2 minutes left. Let me just tell one story. So there's this guy, Hugh Hare, who, again, a great TED Talk. I saw him speak. I was speaking before him, then he got up and he spoke about the symbiotic relationship between man and machine, and he lifted up his pants and he had bionic legs that he actually controlled with an app. You could hear them walking, he could run, he could jump. And what he talked about was, somebody in the crowd asked, do you ever see a time when somebody would opt to have a bionic arm versus their real arm? He said, well, imagine if you're 85 years old and your arthritic arm doesn't work like your 18-year-old one used to. And by having an arm put on, there's no complications, what would you do? Would you choose to or not? And there was a hush over the crowd because you began to realize that we were approaching an entirely new era of humanity, which we have to ask ourselves these questions. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be a robot at the end of the day? Before we answer that, I'm going to let this guy the question. Did you have a quick question? And then we're going to come back to
From One Public, New York. I struggle with the panel, but thank you for the last point. That was quite phenomenal. You guys touched on multiple topics
I know we kinda went
of engineering: human interaction, robotics, software automation, machine learning. They're all different fields. 90% of media people do not understand engineering and technology. As such, I come from an engineering background, so I struggled. Which of these aforementioned topics do you think you guys were talking about? Robotics, machine learning, human interaction, and software automation.
But I don't think they're separate.
Yeah, in fact, we were just trying to fill 40 minutes at the end of the conference. So we still have 30 seconds. And normally, what Spencer is asking me is that I'm doing something like, this is the end, beautiful friend, the end.
But
So wait. So it would be a mistake if we ended without saying the year 2029.
okay.
So the year 2029 is the year that the singularity folks say we cross over and that humans and robots merge into one. And I guess all I'm saying, and I don't mean to be anti-robot, by the way. I'm not biased against robots. What I would say is this, though. I do think it's important that we think about this more and that we're clear about when we let robots make decisions for us. And I think that having them identify themselves as robots is part of that.
Any closing remarks?
Stephanie has a question.
Oh, okay.
That's a good one.
I know.
Do you think we could love robots?
If it's Glendraiser, yes.
If
Because
she-
he's a kind robot.
If she treats me nicely, I mean,
If she,
well,
Yeah.
that's one version.
for a robot.
You want a closing remark?
We have binders full of robots.
Binders. The Mitt Romney joke.
Well played.
Real quick, closing remark. Or a thought on.
Looking forward for the discussion next year in Monaco.
Nice.
With pleasure.
I'm going to close with, I don't think there is a separation right now between those four areas that you named. I think they all, machine learning, robotics, it's all the same thing. But I do think that the question that was asked, can man love robots, is kind of the general thing that we're going to wrestle with, which is where does humanity begin and robotics end as we move closer and closer to that symbiotic relationship, and then what are their places in our understanding of humanity. So I know it was an abstract panel at the very end of the day, but the good news is there is lunch to be served, and thank you guys so much. Thank you.